What is up, guys? Pastor Matheny here, and thank you for joining me today in my study. So at confirmation class this past week, we were talking about the Ten Commandments. We were discussing the Ten Commandments in Luther's Small Catechism. And this is a section of the catechism that I very much love and have grown to appreciate more over the years of teaching it in confirmation class. But there's oftentimes, I think, a disconnect in thinking about the Ten Commandments and in talking more broadly, I might say, about God's law or his will for his creation. And it comes out in confirmation students with a particular question that I think they probably ask pretty much all of their teachers. And they say something like, why are we bothering to learn this? Or how is this useful? Or what does what you're talking about right now have to do with how I'm going to live the rest of my life? They're wanting to know about practicality. They're wanting to know how applicable something is. They want to make sure that whatever it is that is being put in their head is useful in their estimation. Now, that's a hard judgment to make as to what's useful for a person who has relatively little experience of the world and how it goes and what it is. But in an attempt to answer this question for the students, I took a particular tactic with them in talking about the Ten Commandments. I said, all right, let's just see how useful this is. How many of you, by a show of hands, would like to be friends with a thief? Of course, nobody raised their hands. All right, how many of you would like to have a close friend who shares all of your secrets and talks about you behind your back? Once again, no show of hands. I said, all right, how many of you would like to be friends with a person who is very often and very easily angry with you, who shouts and yells and berates you? Once again, no show of hands. Now, most people wouldn't think of this in terms of the usefulness of the Ten Commandments, but that's exactly what I was getting at. Apart from the fact that the Ten Commandments come from God himself and he has divinely commanded us to live in accordance with them, there's a very useful aspect to the Ten Commandments, and that is these are the way that God has designed us as his human creatures to work and to live. And when we live in accordance with them, we live in the greatest possible harmony with everyone around us. That is to say, there is no better way to live one's life than in accord with the Ten Commandments, as was evidenced by the show of hands or lack thereof from my confirmation students. No one really wants to be friends with a thief or a murderer or one who is rife with coveting or adultery or any of those other things. And it just so happens that our lives will be most full and most fruitful to ourselves and our family and our friends and our neighbors and our world when they are in accord with what God has said about who we are to be as his creatures. Let me put it another way. And here I'm going to quote a very early church father from the 2nd century AD by the name of Irenaeus, who lived in France before it was France. And he put it this way in his writings. He said, "The glory of God is man fully alive." And what he meant was precisely what I'm getting at here. We are most fully alive when we live our lives in accord and in concord and in harmony with what God has said and how he has described that we ought to be. God doesn't make a list of arbitrary rules that are useless in the world. In fact, what he does is, knowing us better than we know ourselves, knowing the human race better than humans ever will, he has declared to us how it is that we ought to relate to him and to each other. And that summary is the Ten Commandments. So why bother learning the Ten Commandments? Why bother studying and taking to heart what God has said And the answer is, first of all, because we should, because he is God and we are not, we are his creatures. But in the practical sense, it's because if you want to have a life that is full, that is meaningful, that is in accord with the truth and the goodness and the beauty that God has designed, then you'll live in accordance with his word, with his commandments, and with what he has said. So I've been thinking about this since confirmation class this week, and I just thought I would share it with all of you and hopefully hear some feedback and some reply about what you think about all of this. So anyways, I hope that this little reflection has been useful to all of you, has been beneficial, and has been good for you as it has been for me. I'll hope to see you all again soon. Peace.